Hey friends, this is the Mr. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead with a tea break. Now listen, I got a huge response from what my grandmother would tell you to save and what else my grandmother would tell you to save. I got so many awesome ideas from you guys that I need to share them, okay? Because it's not just about what I know, it's about what we all know. And we need to be more of a community now. We may be all over the world, but we need to be more of a community and support each other through what's coming up, especially in North America. I don't think people realize how bad it could possibly get over the next year or two. So here is what your grandmother would tell you to save and your ideas. Now listen, first off, I want to share a revelation I had yesterday. I was talking to some friends in my Patreon live stream. It's unlisted and there's only a few of us, but we bounce stuff off of each other. And I was like, okay, I'm getting really tired. If I have more than one milk bag or a parchment paper, I don't want to hang the parchment paper on my oven door. I don't want to hang the bags on my utensils. And somebody had a really great idea that her husband had made her a piece of wood with doweling sticking up for her to hang her bags on. Well, I was sitting thinking, I should go to the dollar store. Now listen, this is the way we have to stop thinking. I was thinking, I should go to the dollar store and get one of those dainty hangers. You know, the hanger you put on your shower curtain and it has a ring full of clothes pegs attached to it. Now, those are cheap. They're plastic and they're going to break. And I don't need to buy that. Do you know what I did? I realized I had bought these big clothes pegs from the dollar store. I don't know where I got these. Hardware store maybe. And I thought, I don't need to do that. Look, folks, a wire coat hanger, and you put your clothes peg on it until it reaches that little notch. Look, parchment paper, plastic bags, milk bags, tin foil, anything you want to dry. Now I have a shelf over my sink that has cup hooks in it where I hook on all my utensils. I can just hang this on there and it hangs over my sink. Now, if you don't have something like that, you can turn this hook around like this and hang it on the inside of a cupboard door, like under your sink or somewhere where it's not going to necessarily be visible. Don't go to the dollar store. Don't pay the money for their cheap plastic crap. Think of an alternative way to get what you want and do what you want. I'm so proud of that because it's been bugging me. I'm so proud of that. So I'm going to shout out some folks who gave some really good ideas. Now listen, there was a lot of repeated ideas. So if your name isn't called out here, it's only because the idea was repeated over and over and over again. But thank you all for so many wonderful ideas. And let's keep this ball rolling, right? Someone this morning when we were with my gardening in the Rubbermaid totes said that there's a person in California who does all their gardening in buckets and totes. And I went over and had a look, and by God, I subscribe. We need to build more of a community where communication is supporting each other. So keep these ideas coming. All right. Sticker farm. Cut Brillo or SOS pads in quarters. Only need a small piece to scour and then discard. Somebody else said, and it's probably on this list, somebody else said, when you use your Brillo pad, put it in a baggie in your freezer, like your SOS pads, because they rust really fast. Put them in a baggie, put them in your freezer. And then they don't rust, and they're there when you need them again. And then you get multiple uses out of one Brillo pad. Rebel 0905, God bless my grandmother. One thing she also taught me is a pair of pantyhose can be cut up and tied or stretched over a bowl and catches almost anything. Somebody else in here said you can use knee highs for jelly bags. I'm just saying. And that is like, if you want to, like when I want to strain broth, there's often, I use a strainer, but there's often debris that gets through the strainer, and I would be using a clean tea towel, right? Use your old knee highs or your old nylons, cut a section out of the leg, tie the bottom, and then stretch it over your strainer, and it catches everything. God bless your grandmother. Amanda Suley. My grandmother used bread bags to freeze her retired chickens and roosters. They worked great. I used them to send my husband's sandwiches to work. For family picnics, I would stack our sandwiches, and I remember doing this. I'll tell you in a minute. Our sandwiches right back into the bread bag. Also kept them in a diaper bag for dirty diapers, wet clothes, and so on. So you keep these bread bags in your diaper bag, and if you get a dirty diaper, if you're using cloth, and folks, if you have babies and you are using disposable diapers, please, 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 please stop. I mean, if you're traveling, that's one thing to use them as an emergency travel thing. But I put both my kids through with cloth diapers. And I didn't have the fancy pre-made cloth diapers that you would have to buy new ones as they got bigger. I had a square of flannel that I used for a diaper. And as the kids got larger, I would double it up. I would make it bigger, but I would put a folded diaper as a pad inside, right? So that they weren't completely bulky. But please use cloth diapers. Deborah Brooks. I have a small grocery store with a deli across the street from me. Now this is brilliant. They were shocked when I asked them if they would save the gallon containers they get condiments in. They had been throwing them away. I now average 3 to 4 per week. I fill with Dawn and vinegar and hot water and let sit overnight. No odor and completely food safe and free. And I want to talk to you about Dawn and vinegar in a second. Thank you, Deborah. Desa or Desa. My dad nailed the tops a bit. I've seen people do this too. He used to do it with tobacco cans. My dad nailed the tops of baby food jars to the basement rafters, put nails, nuts, bolts, etc. in the jars, and then just screwed them onto the nailed lids. You could see what you needed. Just unscrew the jar from the lid. I also used wash stockings and pantyhose to hang off the top. Now this is where I got the idea. Hang off the top of my kitchen cabinet doors when making elderberry jelly when I didn't have cheesecloth. Just make sure they're clean. Even if they're used, they're fine if they're clean, right? And good for straining liquid from soft cheeses like ricotta. My mother-in-law kept a plastic container in her kitchen freezer. Every scrap of meat, boiled potatoes, and spoonfuls of vegetables went into that container. When it was full, she would make some mushroom gravy and put it all in a casserole and top it with a pie crust or biscuits and bake it. Totally delicious. I'm stealing that idea. Yolanda, when I was a little girl, the first plastic bread bag showed up. I remember when bread was wrapped in wax paper. When I was a little girl, the first plastic bread bags showed up. My mommy washed them and used them over and over. You couldn't buy bags back then. I'm 73. I think it was only Wonder Bread that kept wrapping them rather than bagging them when I was a kid. Jude from Kentucky. I just thought of something else that I would do with bread bags. When I make my biscuits, now this is brilliant because, and I'll tell you why. I just thought of something else. When I make my biscuits, I put one in the bottom of a bread bag, twist it off, and put a bread tie and then another one, twist it off, and a bread tie, just like you would with onions and netting. Just twist and tie it off between each biscuit. Then I put about 12 of them in a freezer bag. It keeps them fresh, just like they were when you made them. I use my bread bags for a lot of things I put in the freezer. You have just solved a problem that I have every time I make scones. Because scones, it isn't a big deal, but when I set out to make scones, I make enough to put in the freezer so that I can just egg wash them, sugar them, and bake them off. But I always have a problem because I put them in bags or even in bins, and they don't last long, they don't last as long. So your idea of putting it in a bread bag and tying it off and then putting another one in a bread, drop another one in, scrunch it up, tie it off, and then put it in a freezer bag or a bin. And that's brilliant. They will stay much better. And thank you for the use of the idea for the bread bags. Tara, I also have habits passed on to me by my granny. I wash and use meat trays. Also, she taught me to keep a Ziploc bag in the freezer for holding the wrappers from sticks of butter. When I need to grease a pan, I put a butter wrapper. I just grab a butter wrapper and use it because there's almost always just enough butter on there to grease a cookie sheet. Now listen. In the US, most of your butter comes in sticks. Mine comes in a full pound. But I'm still and they're usually foil covered with parchment lining. I'm going to start saving them. Thank you for that. However, if you have those butter wrappers off your sticks of butter, those are also parchment. Save those butter wrappers after you have greased the cookie sheet. Wash them in hot soapy water. If they're good parchment, they won't dissolve, right? Wash those butter wrappers. Use them to put in between your hamburger patties in the freezer or something along those lines. Tony Johnson, my in-laws laughed at me when I showed up at family events with my used and washed containers. But when it was time for cleanup, they realized how brilliant I really was. They don't have to worry about getting a dish back. They also know that when I host a party, they will be leaving with old butter and carry-out containers filled with leftovers. Oh, brilliant. Fortitude Farm. I've cleaned up the wax-like bags that cereal comes in and cut into squares to separate items like hamburger patties when they go in the freezer. It makes it easy to take out one and keep the rest frozen. I'll wash out Ziploc bags and reuse. If you don't want to reuse meat ones for the other, they are great for keeping small parts in the shop. I also stick slivers of soap in a stocking and tie to my outside faucet. It holds soap for hand washing before coming inside. Julie Harvard. I used coffee canisters to save my coffee grounds for the garden and then just put the lid on. Space Girl. Oh, here's a good one. Okay, I wish the corporations cared enough to put flour in fabric bags. Such love in those days. May God bless us and bring us a great revival to become the community we used to be. Exactly. And it wasn't just flour. Sugar would come in those sacks too. So and the reason they did that was because people were so poor, they were turning flour sacks into clothes. And sugar and flour and oatmeal companies and feed companies decided to get people to buy their product. They put prints on them. I wish they would do that today, because even the old plain white ones, all that, those feed sacks, that you made little dresses, you could use them as aprons, you could use them for all kinds of stuff, dish rags. Big Sky Dreamer 26. Save your glass food jars with good fitting lids. I hear that glass food jars may become more and more harder to find as so much plastic has replaced them. I wash my Ziploc bags and reuse, save bags for trash, and keep my trash to a minimum. Anything that can be reused with a purpose is saved within reason. Or put in the recycle bin that is picked up once a week by the city. I too have many cardboard boxes for gardening and weed control. I also use outdoor clothesline as well as a portable clothes dryer that I can set up indoors or outside to dry delicates or small items like socks. The cost of natural gas and electric is getting to the point of being a luxury for so many of us, as well as gasoline and food. So any way I can squeeze that quarter, or I'm doing what I can. I've been snickered at, ignored, but it's my personal choice for my own good, and I have skills to put to work any way I can. It's sad so many do not have common sense skills or an inkling of wanting to learn to do the simplest things to make ends meet. Now listen, folks, you know I have 4 hooks going into the beam under my porch roof here, and I have a rebar across that. And if it's too hot to run the dryer, I will just take a clothes basket outside and I will put stuff on hangers and hang it outside. And if you have moldings over your doors, like good strong moldings, you can hang clothes, even sheets, use the coat hangers and hang them on the door jambs. And if you have sheets or blankets on them, you fold it up and you run it through the hanger. And then halfway through the day, you take it off the hanger, shake it out, and fold it in the opposite direction and put it back on. I did that for years when I didn't have a dryer. Just me. I'm 44, but my kids keep saying I'm turning into their grandma because I reuse everything. My husband and I are old souls. I found a fully functioning wringer washer for $75. I wish. I save our rainwater in lick tubs that my husband gets for cattle. I use that to water my plants and to wash clothes in. I'm lucky my grandma taught me how to make soap. Passed down. Her laundry soap bar recipe. I had to adjust it because her measurements were based on a can of Red Devil dye. Don't use things like Red Devil lye. Because more often they have more caustic components in them, because they were thinking, Red Devil lye has since become a drain cleaner. But go to your hardware store, look for Gillette's lye. I go to my hardware, I'm going to have to get some soon because I'm going to be making soap this fall. But I go to my hardware store and I get like a 2-liter jug of lye crystals. And that lasts me quite some time. Heaven Bound Homestead. I sterilize brown paper bags because there is an old-fashioned recipe for cookies that you bake on the bags. I have tried everything, but it doesn't taste as good as when baked on a brown paper bag. Ironing sterilizes it. Now, I'm a quilter. I have 2 irons in my house, but a lot of people don't even use irons anymore. If you're a quilter or you want to resave your parchment and all that stuff, get yourself an iron. Okay, and here's some things I read, but I couldn't find them again. Pill bottles. When you get to our age, pill bottles can stack up pretty quickly. So saving the pill bottles, the drugstore doesn't want them back, right? So what you do is you just peel the label off, put a fresh label on, and save your seeds, your harvested seeds, your packaged seeds. For instance, you saw me plant Swiss chard. Well, now I have a half a pack of seeds. I'm going to go through all our pill bottles and I'm going to start saving my seeds in pill bottles, not just in a cookie tin. You can organize them better. They stay better. They save better. It's just brilliant. Somebody said that and I thought that was wonderful. A lot of people said brown paper bags, you use them for sewing patterns. I mean, how many people still sew their own clothes with patterns? But now fabric, let me talk to you about this. Fabric is really expensive to make your own clothes. Go through your wardrobe. Find out what can be freshened up with a few accessory pieces. What can be, if you've lost weight, cut down, alter all those clothes. And what you don't use, save for rag rugs and quilts. But trust me, I don't shop at Value Village. Because if I want to pay $20 for a pair of jeans or $10 for a pair of jeans, I'll go to friggin' Walmart. But if you find thrift stores where every once in a while they'll say, you know, $5 a bag, it used to be $1 a bag. You could come in with a garbage bag, pay $1 and fill it with whatever you want from the clothing rack. And if you can do that, you can remake clothing without buying new, and it's a lot cheaper. Okay, here's something else I want to tell you. Don't buy buckets. Somebody mentioned that they were gardening in buckets from the dollar store. Don't do that. All right? Go to the nearest fancy ice cream store where people line up for ice cream and ask them to save you their ice cream buckets. Ice cream does not come in those cardboard containers anymore. They come in buckets with plastic lids. So go to the ice cream shop. Go to the nearest, like that lady said, go to the deli. They'll get things in just, not just big condiments, you know, they'll get things like margarine and stuff in 3-gallon buckets. Ask. More often than not, they're throwing them away. Oh, and somebody just recently said, no, I've got to show you, my thumb is finally healing. I finally got all, I opened it and got all the infection out and then peroxided it. No emergency room trip needed and no antibiotics. Press a brown, now someone said this and they said, press brown paper on a cut. Like if you, not like if you need stitches or something, but on a cut that's bleeding, like especially on your fingers, wrap a piece of brown paper and press it on there. It will stop the bleeding like a Band-Aid. Okay, it will stop the bleeding. And then when the bleeding is stopped and you want to take it off, don't peel it off dry. It will open the cut again. Just run it under water and take it off. Well, I tell you, keep these ideas coming. When we have more of them, you know, when we have more to share, I'll be putting them out here for you. Now, remember, folks, they are, you know, and a lot of people aren't seeing it, but these rising gas prices is just the beginning. They're talking about food shortages, and they're blaming it on things that where the blame doesn't belong, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the blame lies, in the food shortages, in the gas prices, or anything else. What matters is how we deal with it, right? And it's coming. So please reduce, reuse, recycle, and learn how to cook more frugally. All right? I'm going to do the absolute best I can to bring you some more of those $2.79 to $5 meals. All right? This is the Mrs. Wolfie from Our Half Acre Homestead saying, thank you. Let's do this again. Take care. God bless.